He thinks he can't dance. He may be right.
He can't tango or foxtrot or boogie.
My memory is that he's the worst singer in the world.
I'm a hard-headed woman. I'm a bitch on heat.
He's not good at sport.
He can't play cricket. He loves the game, but he can't play it at all.
He can't lose board games very graciously.
I don't know if he can do hairdressing. Maybe he can't. I'd like to think he couldn't. But he'd teach himself, wouldn't he?
Yes, it is nice, isn't it? There's a little man in the village who runs up my skirts.
And your name is?
Stephen Fry.
Your occupation?
Principal ballerina with the Mariinsky State Opera.
Stephen could have been quite a few things. What's so great is that he's lots of things.
Polymath,
Raconteur.
writer, wit,
Broadcaster.
actor, director,
Professionally tall.
shot putter.
He's one of life's enthusiasts.
A great popularizer, but without losing any of his own integrity.
He's a surprisingly good kisser.
He's incredibly versatile, nauseatingly, disgustingly versatile.
I've always felt a jolly good egg.
Me and Hugh and Stephen were all direct contemporaries at Cambridge, so we all arrived at exactly the same time.
I knew of Stephen's existence long before he knew of mine. I had watched him in many plays. He was a sort of straight actor when he was at university. It so happened that I ended up in a position of some power, or at least responsibility. I had to put this show together, a comedy show, Review. I didn't want it to be shiny-faced undergraduates singing songs and being larky. I wanted it to be grown up and mature. And Stephen had that in spades. In fact, he had it in every suit. And so I approached him via Emma Thompson. Emma Thompson was the go-between.
I like to think of myself as having been entirely responsible for the whole Fry-Laurie phenomenon. But of course they would have met because they were destined always to be friends.
Heaven be praised, we made each other laugh.
Now, that's a lot of nonsense, and you know it.
He made me laugh such a lot, and continues to do so, and has made me laugh now for 25 years. I just knew that he was the man for me, as it were.
Ah, Mr. Lawson Particle, cried the Count. Welcome to Castle Dracula. Tell me, what blood type are you? A. I said, what blood type? Oh, I said, B.
If you go back as far as 1981, at the Edinburgh Festival, everyone's there was thinking, well, we've had enough of the Cambridge Footlights and that sort of rather jolly boating kind of sense of humour, and other things were growing up. So by 1981, they decided to institute a thing called the Perrier Prize, Perrier Award, to reward the most exciting, most interesting thing in comedy. And lo and behold, blow me down, must have annoyed the Perrier Committee such a lot. The very best show that year happened to be the Cambridge Footlights, which had in it not only Stephen Fry, had Hugh Laurie and Emma Thompson.
Oh, Robert, if only you understood how weak I felt. I do feel so desperately weak.
Oh, but my darling, you must be strong. You can be strong. Be strong. Be strong for me, Elizabeth. Can you be strong for me? Be strong for me.
I think I've still got the bonnet from the Elizabeth Barrett Browning sketch. God, what does he know? Oh, but Daddy doesn't marry. You can't marry Daddy. You're not going to marry Daddy. You're going to marry me. Oh, there was a lot of that, yes. We did enjoy that.
There is this folk myth amongst the terminally resentful that Stephen and Hugh, as it were, left Cambridge with monocles flashing in their eyes and looked out at the world, surveying it like Satan on a mountain, and said, right, where should we go, Hugh, old chap, to absolutely ascend to the pinnacles of comedy? That is not how it works at all. They've got where they've got to because they are both extremely talented.
I think the first time I saw Stephen Fry on TV was probably The Young Ones, The University Challenge episode was great fun.
Representing Footlights, we have Lord Monty, Lord Snot, Miss Money Sterling, and Mr.
I guess it was kind of my idea that my other friend should come in and be in The Young Ones.
Who is the richest person in the world?
Footlights Snot. It's me, isn't it?
It was just a great episode, and Stephen, Hugh and Emma brought, you know, their wonderful, you know, I say embryonic, it wasn't embryonic to them, but to the world, you know, comic character talents, and of course it just exploded into The Young Ones mix.
Relax, we can handle this. Vivian. Achtung!
It's not an automatic.
My favourite comedy thing that Fry ever did was Saturday Night Fry, Series 1 of Saturday Night Fry, on the radio.
At the Saturday Night Fish Fry. It was right.
Well, there now, if that hasn't moistened your laughter glands and whipped you into a whirling, dizzying, giddy fever of comic anticipation, then my name's Stephen Fry.
I remember my mates and I, we bootlegged it off Radio 4 and we'd exchange cassettes with each other.
I just thought they were the funniest things I'd ever heard.
You find me outside the church of St Barnabas the Smiley in the little village of Skettisham. I'm Bayliss Oddnob, and you're listening to On Location. This week we're on location for the shooting of a new all-British film from the director Tumphrey Puke.
He used to play a character called Trefusis, Donald Trefusis, a professor who would occasionally crop up on loose ends, and I always loved Trefusis.
Parent power and democracy are as closely related as Mike Gatting and the Queen Mother. And unless someone's been keeping a very juicy scandal from me, that is not very closely at all.
Well, I loved a bit of Fry and Laurie. I really loved it. I thought it was very, very, very funny.
I used to be a real big fan of a bit of Fry and Laurie. I used to absolutely love it. They kind of sort of slip by in the radar. When people talk about great comedy shows, a bit of Fry and Laurie kind of gets missed out.
Welcome to A Bit of Fry and Laurie.
Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue à un morceau de Fry et Laurie.
Stoat Messi Bim, Gut Yender, Fenstupke, Fry, Stink Laurie.
The most interesting thing about it was that it was entirely without peer. It was entirely original, because Stephen and Hugh are entirely original.
I just thought they were like a couple of schoolboys, really, and I kind of quite like that, just mucking about, you know.
There would be 20 different ideas in every half hour, and good. I think that's what a sketch show should be like.
See this? You could eat your dinner off this. Sex is nothing to fax home about. Well, Christ, I've left the iron on.
The fact that that friendship is real, it's not a professional coupling. You know, the thing with Morecambe and Wise was that they were, you know, genuinely really, really close. And Stephen and Hugh expressed that as well in their show.
We had no conventional double act dynamic. Because we're sort of close to being the same height, we couldn't get that, you know, the short, fat, funny one and the tall, lanky, laconic one. We just weren't naturally that kind of a double act.
92 years old.
That's right. 93 come November.
92 years old, and I've never had oral sex.
Well, I should think not indeed. Oral sex, the idea.
Never ridden a camel.
You're just babbling now, Mr. Simnock.
Never watched a woman urinate.
I shall get very cross with you in a minute, I shall, really.
Never killed a man.
Well, there's a certain man I shall be killing if he's not very careful.
He was funny in it, and he loves language so much, and there are a couple of sketches and monologues that he did that stand out, where he just played with words.
I do have a peculiarity, which I feel I must, in all softness, be rather heavenly about just for a divine. Like an increasing number of people today, I have a pair of nipples attached to my chest. Here, and to a lesser extent, there. But, and this is where I'm forced to be a little more delicious than usual, while this one here, Neville, is rosy and healthy and everything one could want, this one, Sheila, is bright blue and something of a young disappointment. Well, there in a smooth-limbed, golden-thighed way we are.
The things that make you laugh with Stephen Fry, they're a rewarding and nourishing, nutritional comedy, I think he presents you with.
He has, you know, obviously the extremely wonderful way with words and a very sort of superior way of delivering them, and I think his comedy lies in his skill with hauteur.
Yes, Mr. Drip tells me that it's one of the most mature and exciting poems he's ever received from a pupil. Don't suck your thumb, boy.
Well, I'm not, sir.
No, that was just a piece of general advice for the future.
He was very good as a woman.
These? Bernard Matthews Golden Turkey Drummers. You'd be surprised how versatile they are. I've got one in at the moment, actually.
They used to do this letters thing, where they'd say, we've had a letter from... And there were always ridiculous names. And I always try and come up with a new name when I see Stephen that I remember from, like, Frility Waist Splendour, Gengulphus Pantygrace, all these ridiculous names. Jenny Moist, nay, Jenny Split.
Yours, Peter, come in my ear.
£5 on its way to you, Mr. Come in my ear.
It was fantastically rude. Yeah, the stuff they got away... I mean, they had, like, a character called Mr. Pentafuck or Mr. Cunterblast, and they just stick it into a sketch, and nobody seemed to notice.
Hello, yes, I've just been looking for a particular book in the sports section, and it doesn't seem to be there. It's by Ted Cunterblast, and I think it's called The West Indies, A Nation of Cricketers.
That'll be in the sports section.
It was great. It was just very exciting. It was the same... Watching that show was the same kind of excitement as watching the young ones, and you kind of went, they... Did you just hear what they said? That's so rude. Brilliant.
That's a lot, then, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, you've already got a triple knob joint with snatch membrane, have you? You got it? Well, going straight or curved?
Straight, then curved.
Nah, should be OK, as long as you remember to suck the clenching lobe tight to the bowl thrust.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. And whatever you do, don't forget to lubricate your slip hole before any grip jigging.
The Peter and John sketches, the two businessmen who behaved as though they were running a multinational company, but in fact ran a very small-time health club in Utoxeter.
Keith called a couple of hours ago from Helsinki.
But that was Keith just now, surely?
Yeah, just now, our time. But he called a couple of hours ago his time.
They spoke like that to each other. Damn. They said damn a lot. It was just very funny. And one of them was recently divorced from Marjorie. Damn, you look good, Marjorie.
Hell, Marjorie would float her own grandmother as a holding corporation and strip her bare of preference stock if she thought it would hurt me. 3 pints of damn and a chaser of hell blast.
Sometimes when you're in a sketch with someone that you like and admire, it's just simply like having the most expensive seat in the house, you know. There's the people in row A, and they paid £12 or whatever, and, well, £12, huh? Who pays £12 for anything now? But there am I, you know, a matter of 2 feet away, getting to see him be funny. And there is no greater pleasure than that.
First-class flight to Chichester. Tables 2 on the sleeper from Chichester to Stroud. Hair trigger, fur barrel, soft-eared bullets, just as you like.
Certainly came prepared, didn't you?
I prefer to put it this way. I certainly came prepared, didn't I? Welsh passport, hotel reservations at the Welcome Break Low Wycombe, all in the name of one Louis Potter.
And the real Louis Potter?
A chartered prostitute from Hereford. Died 2 years ago in a smiling accident.
He has this, again, remarkable ability to portray different characters very believably, I think. And I think one of the best demonstrations he gave of that was in the Blackadder series, which I thought was extraordinary.
The thing that's made me laugh and laugh was when Stephen was really cruel to Hugh in Blackadder, when he's playing the prince and keeps hitting Hugh. And I think there was something in that released released probably something that Stephen had been longing to do for years to Hugh, which was just belt him one.
How dare you sit, sir, in the presence of your betters? Get up!
Oh, Christ, yes, I forgot.
You speak when you're spoken to! Unless you'd rather be flayed across a gun carriage? Well...
I just remember being helpless with laughter watching them do it. It was just such a very, very funny scene. Because it's got something, you know, there's some wish fulfillment in there, I
We
think.
no longer treat servants that way in London society.
Why, I hardly touched the man.
I think you hit him very hard.
Nonsense! That would have been a hard hit. I just hit him like that.
Yes, I don't know what the hitting was supposed to express. It's not really the gist of our relationship. I just liked falling over, and he liked making me fall over, and that seemed to be reason enough. It's not very profound, is it?
There's also something very funny about Stephen being cruel, because it is his purpose in life to be kind. And so when he lets that cruelty out, there's something terrifically compelling about it, and very, very funny, for me in particular.
Take my hat at once, sir, unless you wish to feel my boot in your throat, and be quicker about it than you were with the door.
Yes, my lord.
I'm a duke, not a lord. Where were you trained? At Dago dancing class?
Blackadder was just great. I mean, I think it was a great series anyway, from the first to the fourth, but particularly in the fourth. I kind of did look forward to General Melchett coming on.
What's going on, darling?
Captain Blackadder to see you, sir.
Ah, excellent. Just a short back and sides today, I think, please.
They just made him look like Kitchener. The absurdity of the landed gentry sending the working classes into war to die in their millions was just taken up so well by Blackadder Goes Forth.
Are you looking forward to the big push?
No, sir, I'm absolutely terrified.
The healthy humour of the honest Tommy. Don't worry, my boy. If you should falter, remember that Captain Darling and I are behind you.
About 35 miles behind.
His performance really was, for me, was really the triumph of the whole show, in a way, because, of course, it would have been possible to get an older actor to play that sort of Kitchener figure. But it wouldn't have been the same somehow. It was important to have a younger person mocking or satirising the officer class. And I can't think of anyone else who could have done it in the way Stephen played Melchett. It was an extraordinary thing.
It will catch the watchful Hun totally off guard. Doing precisely what we've done 18 times before is exactly the last thing they'll expect us to do this time. There is, however, one small problem.
That everyone always gets slaughtered in the first 10 seconds.
That's right.
I think that Stephen's performance in Blackadder 4 is the sort of definitive framing and attack on the British establishment. I suppose that's one of the things people love about Stephen, that he has all the signs of an establishment figure. Public school, Cambridge, a smooth rise to success, knowing all the most famous people in the country. And yet he is absolutely aware of all their flaws, and Melchett is the definitive not listener. And that's greatly helpful. Also, he's tall, isn't he? And I'm always frightened of tall people.
You want me to sit in no man's land, painting pictures of the Germans?
Precisely. Good man.
Well, it's a very attractive proposition, gentlemen, but unfortunately not practical. You see, my medium is light. It'll be pitch dark. I won't be able to see a thing.
That is a point. I tell you what, we'll send up a couple of flares. You'll be lit up like a Christmas tree.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Glad I checked.
I think that Stephen is often underrated for his acting.
Tell me, Miss Post, do you care about walking?
What about it?
I thought we might take some nature walks together. Go on discussing art and literature like this. But I better warn you, I'm pretty susceptible.
Well, then, perhaps we should postpone the walks until the weather's a bit finer. It would be too bad if your book was held up because you'd caught a cold.
I'm talking about sex, Miss Post. Yes, you see, I believe in utter frankness about sexual things.
He's got the stillness of an actor, and I think it's something that's very difficult to capture as a performer, and particularly if you come from comedy. You're expected to be slightly wild-eyed and flailing arms, which he isn't.
Hello, Daniel Davenport. Congrats on a terrific little innings. But the umpire's fingers up and you're out. Hit wicket.
Who was it?
There's some fools messing around the answering machine. That's the trouble with those things. People can't resist being childish.
As a straight dramatic actor, it's as if there is some sort of profound sadness underneath all of his gregariousness and his desire to entertain and make people feel good. It's as if there is some sadness. I suppose I'm as well qualified as anyone else to say whether or not that's true. So is it true? Is there a deep sadness? Well, yes, there may be. There may be. That has a lot to do with his power and appeal as an actor. It's very engaging. Very engaging. I feel for him when I watch him.
My experience with him on Peter's Friends, where he had to carry quite a sort of large part of the emotional weight of the movie, I thought he did beautifully.
We shot it in, I don't know, 10 days for 2 and 6. And there was Stephen suddenly doing a major part and holding a film and doing it wonderfully well.
Oh, and what's all this then?
It's called the Potbelly, Andrew. We have those in England, along with culture.
On the first day of rehearsal of Peter's Friends, he walked into the room where I was about to start directing him and the others, and I was about to say, "Good morning, Stephen." He said, "Beethoven is an extraordinary man." What? Beethoven is an extraordinary man. Mozart even more so. I mean, to describe them as fit for purpose would be an understatement. They have a direct hotline to God. They creatively, they're absolutely perfect. And Stephen, what are you talking about? We're about to start rehearsing Peter's Friends, our contemporary film comedy. Brahms is another one. Bach. I said, Stephen, what is going on? He said, well, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were wonderful at it. They were masters. I said, are you feeling slightly self-conscious about rehearsing this dance? Yes, that's it. I don't want to dance. I've got this bloody awful body and I don't want to do it. And, you know, I'm not Mozart, I'm not Beethoven. Well, they weren't dancers, were they? He went, I mean, Christ, 5 minutes of the most brilliant articulation of the nature of genius on the way to saying, I'm quite shy about doing the very silly dance where we all have to wear stockings and suspenders.
The Smiths and Barrett's course. Kensington and Bayswater. And again, Paddington and Chapel Peterville.
But he could easily have said, can we do this quite slowly and quietly, because I'm a bit nervous. I hasten to add that all 5 of the other actors in that dance had done just that. It's just that they hadn't given the 4-page speech that Stephen had.
And of course, it was one of the first things to examine AIDS and the possibility of losing your friends young.
I intend to live a long time, thanks very much. I'm going to outlive you all.
If there's anything we can do.
Anything?
Yes.
Nothing at all.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Peter.
He knows you're sorry, dear.
I love you.
I know, Andrew.
Jeeves and Wooster, they were born to play those roles.
I was sent by the agency, sir. I was given to understand that you required a valet.
It's full of the most wonderful wit and originality. Great stuff, I think. I'm so glad they put it on. Because I think as Stephen and Hugh Laurie thought that it wouldn't work, perhaps, on television. But amazingly, it did.
If you would drink this, sir. It's a little preparation of my own invention. Gentlemen have told me they find it extremely invigorating after a late evening.
If I read Woodhouse, Stephen Fry is Jeeves. And I know people were knocked, going, oh, Stephen Fry's too young to be Jeeves. I remember people saying that at the time, but I thought he was brilliant. I thought that that's what Jeeves is like.
He harkens back to an earlier age, not a Victorian age, but the interwar years. He has the language for it, he has the mental equipment, he has the social equipment for it. He belongs in that world, or he can fully inhabit it and bring it back to us.
I'm sorting through these clothes. These are for repair and these for discarding.
Oh, wait a second. This white mess jacket is brand new.
I assume it had got into your wardrobe by mistake, sir, or else that it had been placed there by your enemies.
I will have you know, Jeeves, that I bought this in Cannes.
And wore it, sir?
Every night at the casino. Beautiful women used to try and catch my eye.
Presumably they thought you were a waiter, sir.
They certainly gave it more than just the silliness. They gave it 3 dimensions, which is certainly in the writing. And his Jeeves was a great creation.
Help me on with the jacket, Jeeves.
Which way up does it go, sir?
His performance in Wild was fantastic. I mean, no one at that point, having seen him do the Fry and Laurie sketches, would have thought he'd be able to kind of step up to the plate in that way.
Before we started doing the film, you know, I'd not really seen Stephen act before. You know, it was a big leading part. It was going to require a huge amount of complexity and acting chops, really. And, you know, I wasn't sure if Stephen was going to be able to do it, to be honest. And, you know, I was just blown away by what he did.
I'm not taking him back, Robbie. Not again. I can't. I've been very foolish, very fond. But now I must grow up myself.
Oh, please don't do that. You're an artist. Artists are always children at heart.
I think it's a tremendous performance, and it's a very difficult part to play well and to play sensitively.
And he was so touching, so good in it, and so louche as well, you know. So I think it released an awful lot of his inner stuff.
It seems like something changed in him through doing that film, or certainly around that period of time. And something that was being guarded maybe, or withheld, or whatever it was, seemed to be dropped.
I feel like a city that's been under siege for 20 years. Suddenly the gates are thrown open and the citizens come pouring out to breathe the air and walk the fields and pluck the wildflowers. I feel relieved.
I think I unleashed the inner monster that is Stephen Fry, the sexual being. I think that may have been what it was.
I think he's described Kingdom as putting on a comfortable pair of slippers. And it kind of is. You kind of know where you are with it. I don't think it's pretentious, and I think that's part of its success. And part of that is his central performance.
Everyone else I qualified with is in and out the high courts. Me? I move your old toys around Market Shipra.
Well, that's because they made the mistake of getting good degrees from well-regarded universities. Your genius, Lyle, was to avoid such an obvious route to legal stardom. No other candidate I interviewed chose his uni on the basis of there being a snooker room in every hall of residence.
It is a fantastic part for him. It's a little bit like Cracker was for Robbie. It just met him right in the centre of him. When Bright Young Things came along, we all thought, well, of course he's going to direct a film. He's going to do everything.
And I thought his directing debut, I suppose it was, in a feature film, I thought was dazzling.
The thing I was most jealous about on Bright Young Things is that Stephen enjoyed doing it so much. I would meet him and he'd say, God, isn't it fun? You know, the casting is so fun, the technicalities are so fun. I love learning about the camera and how it all works. And I think that's a wonderful thing about him, the relish with which Stephen goes at things.
He taught himself how to, you know, the technicalities of filmmaking. He taught himself that. So he wasn't there going, oh, look, I'm just, you know, making a film, but I'll let other people do it. No, he wants to make sure that he knows what he's doing and he's in control of it.
So, lovely band. We're going to do something.
You'll get to the end of a scene and instead of saying cut, you go, lovely. Or, you know, he'd say something positively orgasmic. And so it was sort of hearing that come out from this huge man with these great big headphones on as well. It was a great image.
Already you see that there was a whole sort of semi-generation of young English actors and actresses that he has helped to develop and bring to the public's attention because he was bright enough to spot them.
Every day there were these actors coming in, you know, this day, Peter O'Toole's in today, and then, you know, whoever, everyone coming in, Dan Aykroyd, Stockard Channing, and all these great actors. And they just would do anything for Stephen because, you know, that's what he inspires in people. But he would be terribly nervous about having to give them any kind of notes.
Why don't you come in? It's absurd to walk to the station in this 15 miles, for God's sake. Are you mad? Come about the vacuum cleaner, have you?
No. I thought it was a wonderful piece of direction by Stephen Fry. I really did, genuinely. I thought it was a lovely film, and quite a difficult film to get right, quite a difficult film to catch the sort of tempo and the pace and the rhythm of that period in British history, and deal with characters who, you know, would be so easy to make them seem buffoons and you know, sort of foolish, hedonistic, just wastes. But he actually makes you care about them, or those that we're meant to care about. And I think it was, I think, a real achievement.
So I hope he does some more. Cast me, possibly. I'm available, obviously.
Iron bolts were drawn back, the portal swung open, and Count Dracula's manservant stood before me. Of all the hideously disfigured spectacles I have ever beheld, those perched on the end of this man's nose remain forever pasted into the album of my memory.
Stephen is an enormous lover of language, and in that he and I, share a mistress.
I think I said earlier that our language, English... As spoken by us? As we speak it, yes, certainly, defines it. We are defined by our language, if you will.
Hello, we're talking about language.
As Wilde says, any man who would call a spade should be compelled to use one. It's all he's fit for. And I think that Stephen Fry exhibits that quality. That it's not like that he doesn't necessarily use language efficiently in terms of succinctly, but he uses it beautifully, colourful, paints with language, finds humour.
The fact that, you know, Stephen can go from incredibly erudite phrases and references to kind of operas and the great writers, these shores, to a great phrase that he came out with on the Kamars.
The other man's arse is always cleaner, as my uncle used to say.
It's great because you kind of go, well, that encompasses just about everything.
People who try and aggrandise language into something that is right or wrong, you might just as well say a person is right or wrong, but for existing, it's just arse gravy, you know?
He's just got a fantastic sense of how stupid the English language can be.
Our language, Tiger, our language, hundreds of thousands of available words, trillions of legitimate new ideas, so that I can say the following sentence and be utterly sure that nobody has ever said it before in the history of human communication. Hold the newsreader's nose squarely, waiter, or friendly milk will countermand my trousers.
Stephen has been compared by the press and indeed by people with the best of intentions to Oscar Wilde. But at one level, I think the comparison can be borne out, and that is Stephen is never so brilliant as when he is in conversation.
Stephen Fry is more or less your perfect talk show guest.
I've said this before, quite simply the cleverest man I've ever met, Mr. Stephen Fry.
He makes my job very, very easy.
He lists his recreations in Who's Who as smoking, drinking, swearing and pressing wild flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Fry.
You always get the sense that there's a conversation going on. It's not a setup for him to make jokes or to make some huge political point. It is absolutely a conversation.
He can take a bit of teasing, at least I think he can, so that there are a few jokes you can kind of make at him or about him. You haven't got to 40 yet, have you?
No.
Is that a bit young to be writing an autobiography?
It probably is, but then, you know, Laurie Lee stopped when he was, you know, his first autobiography was about sort of 11 when he
yes.
You know, when he
yeah. Marvellous writer.
But a great writer, that's true. He was a great writer.
But he's not going to curl up and die. He'll come, you know, zap straight back with some witticism.
Thanks, you pig-eyed sack of shit.
And he's quite... You know, he's a good teller of stories, you know, anecdotes.
Churchill was woken up one Sunday morning when he was Prime Minister in the 50s again by a private secretary who was rather worried and said, I'm afraid there's some rather bad news, Prime Minister. Churchill, what is it? War? We've lost Somalia. What is it? He said, no, it's one of our backbench MPs, one of our squires from the Shires, unfortunately was arrested last night in St James's Park with a guardsman, a guardee. And sadly, it's in the News of the World, the early editions. I'm afraid there's going to be a bit of a stink about it. Churchill said, last night? I said, yes. Yes, Prime Minister. It was very cold last night, wasn't it? And the secretary said, yes. In fact, I believe it was the coldest February night for 17 years. And there was a slight pause, and Churchill said, makes you proud to be British.
He'd be the
one of the best I've ever had, actually, in all the years I've been doing this job. He's like Peter Ustinov, he's like Jonathan Miller, he's like Muggeridge was. You know, they're people with a great intelligence who actually have a great capacity to popularise that intelligence, if you like.
A lot of actors can't tell stories, you know, and even if actors are sort of funny people, they can't actually... People say, oh, tell us that story about it, and it doesn't really happen, but he really has that gift to... You want to sit around a fire with him and just listen to him telling everything he knows, which would take quite a long time, I think.
I wouldn't allow myself to be a weed, so I would sort of, if it was cricket, I would lie on the field, you know, with a limp-bound copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam and say, wait a minute, girls, I'm just coming to the last verse, I can't possibly catch balls at the moment. And but, I mean, it was very hard, and if bullied, I was able to have the line, no, don't beat me up, I'll just get an erection. Don't. Which I would recommend to anybody out there who is being threatened by bullies. That is a very... It's a very good line.
I think that probably, Stephen, I may be entirely wrong, is really a writer who has added in a rather like a Renaissance man, all these other extraordinary attributes.
He's one of the very few people who is primarily a performer, who is also a really gifted writer.
He's writing in the novels, in the autobiography, in the screenplays. I think, for me, they're so full of the real man, this kind of mixture of compassion and wisdom and madness and you know, sort of comic brilliance.
I think his autobiography is the best thing he's ever written. I think he's very, very, very good, and one of the best autobiographies I've read.
But the thing that stayed with me most from that is when he writes about not being able to join in.
I suppose the rest of the school was playing cricket, and I had managed, as usual, to get myself off games by inducing an asthma attack. I loved the feeling of having the school to myself, the distant shouts and echoes without, and the absolute stillness within.
I think that Stephen Fry, who's capable of delivering the performances that he has, the writing that he has, still has alcoves of insecurity. It makes me feel like, oh, well, that's all right then. You can still succeed in life, and, you know, whilst carrying those.
Paperweight was just very important to me because in the dark days of being a teenager, there was someone who, I mean, for a lot of people, you know, they do it through music, and they go, I'm not alone because I had Morrissey or I had David Bowie. I had Stephen Fry, and it made all the difference.
I've read his poetry, the book about poetry, which is so brilliant, and because I knew nothing about it, and it's really taught me a lot, so I'm very grateful for that.
A woman who was very, very keen on chocolate gave me some splendid chocolate and saw me biting a bit off. She said, no, don't you know how to eat chocolate? I said, no, at least I thought I did. She said, no, you just a tiny bit there and put it on your tongue. 10 minutes it'll take. Just let it melt. Just occasionally push it up against the roof of the mouth. And this great rainbow of flavours and textures melts in your mouth. Now, that's all poetry, in a sense. I mean, it slows you down rather beautifully. And you just enjoy the bounce and heft and glory of one word following another.
I was interviewing him about it, and I thought, well, I don't know whether, you know, whether I can even feign interest in this particular subject. Picked it up, read it, loved it. Now, I can't claim to have written poetry as a result of that book. I can't claim to have read a lot more than I read previously. But certainly, I approach it less warily and less suspiciously than I did beforehand. And so I would thank Stephen for that.
I think The Hippopotamus is Stephen's best novel and stands against any of the really good novels for the last 20 years, you know, Any Human Heart, London Fields, Birdsong. I mean, I really think Hippopotamus is that good.
I feel that his writing probably doesn't get paid the attention it deserves because, well, there's something about reviewing. It is the most churlish, resent-laden genre of journalism that exists, and people feel he has quite enough success already.
Welcome to Argue the Toss. My tosser this week is Simon Clituris. Simon Clituris, you saw that sketch. What did you think?
Well, I thought the sketch worked on 2 levels.
Only 2?
Yes, you're right. I'm being simplistic. I thought it worked on 9 levels.
I thought I spotted 12.
I'm an insomniac, and there was a stage where the only thing that helped me get to sleep, it didn't make me fall asleep because it was boring, but it lulled me into this gentle kind of, you know, world of images, was Stephen narrating the Harry Potter books.
You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec, Hagrid called over his shoulder. Just round this bend here.
I didn't choose Stephen, although I would have chosen Stephen. I was given, I was told that 3 people were in the running, and Stephen was one of them. And he was the 3rd name mentioned to me, and I immediately blurted out, oh, let's have Stephen Fry.
The combination of Joe Rowling's words and his performance makes... It's the best thing that Harry Potter's ever done. It's better than reading it in your head, and it's certainly a lot better than the movies. It's a fantastic thing.
Neck and neck, they hurtled towards the snitch. All the chasers seemed to have forgotten what they were supposed to be doing as they hung in midair to watch.
You know, I'm as disappointed that the books are going to end, because it means that Stephen's narration of these characters is going to end too. Now I'm depressed.
Do you think that naturalists observing sensitive ecosystems are subject to the Heisenberg principle, i.e. the act of measuring alters the behaviour of the object being measured?
I think that is a profoundly intelligent and interesting question. I would say so, however, that it comes down not so much to the Heisenberg principle of altering events by observing them, because that's more true of discrete quantum phenomena in the cosmos. And I think in the case of observing animals, it's really more just a question of solipsism, which goes all the way back to the idea of Bishop Berkeley. And if a cow is alone in the field, does it exist if there's no one there to perceive it? Esse est percipe, if you remember the phrase.
I love you.
OK, all right.
I can never get over the range of his knowledge and understanding. And whenever talking to him, it's absolutely fascinating because he knows about everything.
If you've not got a laptop with you, he's Google.
But more remarkable than his intelligence, actually, is his prodigious memory. Stephen has never forgotten anything that he's ever read, seen, heard, or done. And that's slightly creepy. Sometimes I think of him as the most, a wonderful Mr. Toad. It's every day there's something new. Poop, poop. You feel like he'd be running around some part of London saying because he's discovered some new piece of science or he's read some new obscure French poet or something and has made some application with the life that we're all leading. And he likes to pass on enthusiasms. It's exciting to share knowledge, experience, enthusiasm, passions. And I love that about him.
Do you know everything? I really don't know, sir.
He is probably the only person who could get away with being an intellectual and being adored by the British public.
As English people, we're suspicious of intelligence. We don't like intelligent people. We think, oh, you snob, you pompous git, oh, you swat, you boffin. But Stephen Fry, you feel a warmth for him because I don't think I've never witnessed him use his intelligence cruelly.
I think he is someone who, kind of against the odds, has said, OK, yeah, I do know a lot. I probably know a lot more than you. I probably know a lot more than you ever will know. But I'm not judging you for not knowing it. I'll share it with you if you want. If you don't, that's fine, because I'm doing a silly show which you can enjoy anyway. But if you want to know, here, let me share this with you.
Now, English language is like London. It is every time we speak, it is a mongrel mouthful, whether we know it or not, of Chaucer and Milton and Dryden and Pope, Shakespeare and Dickens and American South Central and ghetto rap and Chicago and Australian convict talk and legal and naval and military. Every phrase we utter is an equivalent of London. It's both vulgar and processional. It's both grand and squalid. And that is exactly what human beings are, it seems to me. It's both animal and it's noble.
He engages people with their own intelligence. I think that's what's crucial about him, and that's the real hallmark of a great communicator. He awakens people's own intelligence.
When I've spent time with him, I don't think, oh, I wish I could be in a film with him, or I think, oh, I wish I'd gone to university. I wish I was a bit brighter. And I think if there's anyone out that makes you think, oh, I should read a book, I should listen to Shostakovich, I should be better.
I actually think it's a joy that someone as kind of academic, if you like, as Stephen, gets on the telly and is allowed to say long sentences that no one understands, because we need a bit more of that.
Well, hello and welcome to QI, the world's most impossible quiz and the nearest modern equivalent to Lions versus Christians. Let's meet my lunch.
Most hosts, if you gave QI to anyone else, you'd know they were just reading off the cards. Whereas Stephen quite often drops the cards and just knows stuff. That what the stunning moments are when you know he's not reading and it's just there's stuff falling out of his head. It's just unbelievable, the things he knows.
They are easily distracted and
Why don't you just
offering
say, "Look at that!"
articles. No, you see, Alan, this is a common mistake. Only humans follow the line of a finger. Animals look at the finger. If you point at something, the dog won't go, "Oh, what's he looking at?" He'll look at your finger.
It's nice to find a show which actually seems to have a kind of warmth underneath it and a genuine feeling of fun. You know, you do get the feeling that everyone's enjoying it.
Both Stephen and I feel fiercely about this, that not only is it a haven of a little bit of lightly worn intelligence, but also of niceness. You know, we've had enough of people being horrible to each other, being fired from Big Brother for racist remarks, or, you know, putting two people together in a documentary who hate each other and see what happens. And on QI, you just get pleasantness, really, which is the television and the radio that I and Stephen grew up with.
What quite interesting material do they make their houses from? Yeah.
I don't know, is it dinosaur eggs?
I'm almost inclined to tear up the real answer and say yes, but...
Because I've got one.
A Chinese dinosaur egg?
Yes, it was a birthday present from my wife.
Every evening, Bill, 4 hours on the egg, just in case.
Yes.
In QI, he's doing the same kind of headmaster-type character that he's played in Fry and Laurie sketches for years. It's the same kind of, now boys, and he's just, you know, he's clever on the rest of the boys, but he's also fascinated by what they've got to contribute to the discussion. And yeah, he's just a kind of witty, gentle presence who's basically in charge.
The rules are simple. As I don't really expect anyone to get any of the answers right, I award points for being interesting and penalties, usually, if history is any guide, to Alan for being obvious.
He talks about Alan Davis like he's the stupid boy who shows promise and should be encouraged, and you never know how he might turn out.
Some people say that it's the most homoerotic double act on television. And I think that's probably true. We're all going to live on Mars in the end.
How are you? You sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah? That 1950s boys' adventure book isn't necessarily the truth.
I didn't get it from there. I got it from Channel 5.
Open your desk.
They said the sun.
Wait a minute, you can get Channel 5.
That is you.
What's me?
That's an Alan Potato Head.
I see a side of Stephen that I don't normally see, which is a kind of more laddish side.
He did invent the ball cock.
Ball cock.
The ball cock. Sorry, I don't know why that's funny. It just is. Sorry, but it's funny to say ball cock.
He's quite fortunate in a way that he's very, very clever and very, very funny and lacking in confidence because it makes him very unpretentious and very accessible. It's a shame he lacks confidence because it's given him all kinds of problems in his life. But for those of us around him, it's a boon.
I think that he's made clear also in his writings that being a very, very intelligent person doesn't at all absolve you from life's problems, and doesn't mean necessarily that you can cope with everything that life throws at you. And it may even be a complicating factor.
Stephen's emotions and how he accesses those and how he expresses those is quite another matter. And I think that great, huge intellect is often very much in the way.
I always worry about him. I keep saying, you know, you're doing too much.
I think what he dreads most is boredom. He dreads most, inactivity. And he's always sort of hungry for the next set of problems to solve.
If you have a brain that needs to keep going on like a machine, it does need to have things thrown at it. It's like some sort of furnace, and better it's given other things to burn than its own self.
Is this kind of a kind of frantic chase to do as many things you possibly can before you cross to the further shore?
So I die of death. Yes. It is, to be perfectly honest, it absolutely is. Some people are unaware of death. I'm constantly aware of death, or at least constantly aware of a moment just before death when I say to myself, well, bugger, why didn't I do that? Why did I say no to whatever it is?
You know, one of the interesting episodes in Stephen's life, which is now well documented by himself as well, was when he walked out of the play in the West End that he was doing, and his disappearance for a few days.
The actor Stephen Fry, who disappeared on Sunday, has sent a fax to his agent saying he left the country because of stage fright.
It was interesting that the primary emotion from people was concern.
Rather than it being a sort of a tabloidy tidbit to kind of pull over and pull apart, the fact that this was a real person who people had a lot of affection for, who was obviously having a difficult time and going through something very difficult, I think people were incredibly concerned, and that's, you know, that's the mark of the man.
From that point on, it seemed that he actually took control of his life, more control than he had before, and then again began to make a virtue out of those things that had troubled him. And I think that might have been a very significant moment in his life.
In recent years, he did Who Do You Think You Are and the mental health programme kind of suggest that he's, you know, these are not things that are now shameful for him. These are things that he has kind of proffered up for discussion and debate about him.
There's the Who Do You Think You Are about him, particularly his Jewish heritage and the people lost in the Holocaust.
This is all Jewish people lived here. And there's the names of my great-grandparents. So everyone who lived in this house was taken. Berta and Samuel. I didn't know there was a plaque to them.
There's a inflexible honesty and openness about Stephen, which I suppose he has learned to show, perhaps in this middle part of his life.
We all knew that Dad died, at least believed it. But seeing their names there, and that fucking word Auschwitz, it's just... it does something to you, I tell you, it's quite terrible.
He's so incredibly courageous at describing the difficulties he's had himself in so many different ways. I mean, that program he did, I remember watching it on the television about manic depression and the bipolar complications. I mean, he was so brilliant on that, and it must have helped so many people.
It's one of those great bits of television where you know as you watch it that the world is going to be changed by the fact of it being done. And I think Stephen already says that, you know, doctors are saying that they're getting hundreds and thousands more people who suddenly understand why they're feeling like they are and that they might be able to do something about it.
When you've been depressed like that, what's your self-esteem like?
Oh, it's absolute zero. Stand up from a sofa and walk to the fridge is an actual unbelievable effort. Everything that happens is because you are a cunt. It's because I'm a complete wanker, that's because I'm an arsehole. You know, you kind of almost have a Tourette's view of yourself. You think of death all the time, and even if you're not getting suicidal, you're just constantly aware of death and aware you're in death and how welcome it would be.
I mean, this isn't self-revelation for the sake of self-revelation. This isn't Big Brother. What he was doing when he made the programme about manic depression was really opening a door onto something that for a long time has had a huge stigma. I mean, personally, I have no problem at all with saying that I have been depressed, and it's not something I'm ashamed of. But there are people who do feel a sense of shame about it, and it's also deeply misunderstood.
Seeing Stephen actually in the programme, there was a section of it where he was obviously suffering from the feelings there and then as he spoke.
Very sort of black stage at the moment, and would love to be somewhere else other than here, frankly.
Usually when I feel like this, I hide away. I can't this time. For me, that numbing kind of depression comes 3 to 4 times a year and lasts a week to 10 days.
It's fantastic to to know that you're not alone, and that not only are you not alone, but someone that kind of successful, and erudite and apparently even-keeled also has this problem.
I remember my mum and dad, or you know, people I know who watched that documentary, who happened to catch it, who maybe wouldn't normally watch documentaries, or maybe were drawn to it because it was Stephen, and people being really moved and really touched by it and illuminated by it.
It was just the perfect documentary in that it opened him out in complete openness and confidence and self-confidence that he could be true about himself. But of course it also had that Stephen thing about being very interested in other people. You know, he actually was keen to find out and inquire from other people what their problems were and how, you know, they also had shared in it all. So I think it was a rich brew.
It's difficult being a mummy sometimes because you feel guilty about it. And you feel like you should be, you know, you should be normal and be sensible and responsible and
sleep 8 hours a day.
You can be sensible and you are normal. All personalities are balanced out by something.
Yeah.
And Mum's just happens to be that her creativity is balanced out by her going to sleep.
Yeah.
Does it touch you that they think you've got a gift?
I can't describe what that feels like. I just... It is really touching.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I think we've yet to see Stephen's masterwork. I have no idea what it is. It might be an opera, it might be a brilliant film performance, it may be a novel. I just have no idea, but I think that's still in him.
I think there's potential for great things in the documentary field that he could still do.
More writing, please, and more of everything else.
It would be nice to feel that he'd be allowed to be very funny sometime as well, so that the new generation can enjoy an old man behaving like an arse.
He's going to do everything. I mean, he'll end up running the UN, won't he? Come on, everyone. I mean, God knows one wishes he would.
Quite frankly, I think he should be Prime Minister.
Who knows? I mean, male prostitution is always an option as well with Stephen. It's something he's talked about a lot. I've tried to keep him away from that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went down the gigolo route as well.
To be gorgeous and high and true and fine and fluffy and moist and sticky and lovely, all you have to do is to believe the one is gorgeous and high and true and fine and fluffy and moist and sticky and lovely. And I believe it of myself, tremulously at first, and then with mounting heat and passion, because, stopping off for a second to be super again, I'm so often told it. That's the secret, really.
I think this country is incredibly lucky to have somebody like Stephen. And fortunately, we still produce marvellous people like that. Hugely talented. And a great human being, I think.
The man is a national treasure. He's a national treasure. And he's a personal treasure, too. I share him with the nation.
Language is the creak on a stair. It's a spluttering match held to a frosted pane. It's a half-remembered childhood birthday party. It's the warm, wet, trusting touch of a leaking nappy, the hulk of a charred panzer, the underside of a granite boulder, the first downy growth on the upper lip of a Mediterranean girl. It's cobwebs long since overrun by an old Wellington boot.
No night.
When the music goes around, oh, everybody.
And there's more from Stephen Fry on Saturday night from 7 o'clock.